Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning into our virtual Bible study. We welcome you to this particular lesson. If you're following our current series, this is going to be lesson number five in our current series on Go Into All the World. So, this is a series about evangelism, and we're trying to make it really practical, not overly complicated, so that by the end of the series, everybody, every one of us, are all renewed in our quest to be good personal evangelists. That's what we really want, is to create an eager force of personal workers. That's what we want. Us, all of us included, me included. So I do hope that you're enjoying the lessons. If you've not seen the previous four lessons, I'd encourage you to go back. Now, you're at a disadvantage if you only watch them here because we have the in-person live class that takes place on Wednesday evenings, and these lessons are a part of that study, and we have open discussion, and I'm not omniscient. You know, I don't see all ends of everything, and when we open it up for discussion, somebody inevitably, some people, many people will always make a point. They'll input something, and I'll have to jot it in my notes. I'll think that's a great point. So you're missing out on that. I would encourage you, if you're not coming to the in-person live class, please consider doing that. It's really great. The lessons are, they're structured similarly because we go over the same discussion questions, but it's different. It's not the same. It's better than what we do here. It's just me talking here. And it's always going to be better if you get more people in it than just me. So please, if you're thinking, I'm just going to sit at home and benefit from these, well, I hope they can be beneficial. We're really aiming it for those who maybe can't come, or maybe in other places who just couldn't possibly leave their congregation and come here. And if you're shut in, that's one thing. But if you're able to come, please do, because it's just different. And I hope you'll consider that. Now, if you're visiting our YouTube series, then for the very first time, please go below the video and hit that subscribe button. That's super important for you and for us. For you, you never miss content, but for us, it helps boost our visibility on YouTube. We really want that to happen. We're not monetized. We don't make money off of it. It's not like we're gaining anything financially from that. But we would like to be visible on YouTube for the purpose of truth. We want people to hear Bible. So please help us to push this out through YouTube. You can also give us a thumbs up. Please do that. And there is a way on YouTube to share these videos if you so choose to do it. Now, if you're on Facebook, the most important thing you can do for us on Facebook is to share the video on your timeline. And there is a share tab. I think most of the time it's right below the video. If you're looking at a video, right below it, as in my mind's eyes, I'm looking at it. I think it's on the far bottom right corner of the video. You can hit share, make it public so other people can share it, but share it to your timeline. And what that does, it gives us access to everybody on your friends list. And then maybe they'll share it, and maybe they'll share it. It's like a chain reaction, like we talked about in one of our earlier lessons. That's how evangelism works. People share something, and it gets shared, and then shared, and shared, and it makes it to the world. Please help us to try and do that. Now, as I mentioned, this is lesson number 5. So I think we've covered our basis pretty well. We've talked about basically the importance of evangelism, about going into all the world. Tonight we get to talk about the end of the world part, or in this lesson, I should say, end of the world part. It always airs at night, and I have the bad habit of saying at night, but you can watch it anytime. You can watch it at 5 o'clock in the morning if you so choose to do that, right? If you decide you're going to get up and have lunch and watch this video, great. So you're watching it during the daytime. So as you watch this lesson. But I think in previous lessons, what we've done is laid a good foundation of to whom does the Great Commission apply, and other things like that. So please go back and check the first 4 lessons out. They all build upon each other. In this lesson number 5, what does the world mean? What does it mean to go into all the world? And we follow questions like we do for class. So we're going to follow 3 questions in this lesson. Number 1, what do you think most Christians, or because they come in a congregational context, right? What do you think most churches associate with going to all the world? Mark 16, verse 15. Where is the evangelistic emphasis in most congregations? For example, in their efforts, in their budgets, whatever. Where's the emphasis? Okay. Here's my think so on this. And this is through experience, right? So when I say a lot of these things come from learning, just being observant over the years, I would say without question, most congregations, I say most because I think there are exceptions to the rule, most congregations and most people within congregations think that the Great Commission is a charge to support foreign missionaries in foreign mission fields. That's what I think most people think it means. And even if people would say, well, no, we don't believe that, but they do believe that based on their efforts or lack of them locally and the majority of what is spent in the budget on evangelism. And I'll get back to that in just a moment. So, why is that, though? I mean, why do we do that? And I'm going to offer some defense of that. And I don't say that to be belligerent. I really don't. I'm saying it because I think we need to change this. I think the model of the New Testament is different. And I'm going to say in just a moment, there's nothing wrong with foreign missionaries and foreign mission fields. We need to support foreign mission work and foreign missionaries. But somehow we've lost touch with what should be our emphasis, our real priority, which is local work. And we've lost that. So why have we lost that? Well, some of it may just be mere tradition in a congregation. I grew up in a congregation. This congregation has always supported foreign missionaries, so therefore I'm going to support foreign missionaries. And we could do that if we fall into the trap of just doing stuff because that's what our forefathers did. And there's nothing wrong with supporting foreign missionaries. I want to be very clear because I don't want people walking away saying, David thinks we should cut all ties to foreign missionaries. I don't believe that, okay? But I think some of that is tradition. We've always done it that way, and that's the way it's always going to be. That's how congregations think. That's how they operate mostly. Most of the time, if we have a preacher to come in, most of those visits and most of those sermons are from foreign missionaries looking for support in a foreign mission field or in some kind of collective work, but it's outside the local area. Some of it, though, I think may stem from reading the New Testament and observing in the New Testament foreign places, along with Paul's missionary journeys, right? So Paul preached in foreign places. So that's what we need to be supporting. Now, the New Testament, when you study the New Testament, you have, like several places mentioned in the New Testament, you've got the ancient Near East, you've got Jerusalem and essentially Palestine, but you've got Jerusalem and all that area through the ancient Near East, Asia, Rome, Macedonia, which in modern terms you're talking about Palestine, Syria, Turkey, Greece, Italy, and beyond. And when you're reading the New Testament, when I'm reading the New Testament and I'm reading these places, I'm thinking, look at those fascinating foreign mission fields. And maybe, like we do, we say, one day I want to go walk those foreign places that the Bible was preached in. Okay? I mean, it was written in that context. Okay? So it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that evangelism is meant for foreign fields because they preached in foreign fields. They were literally to us in a foreign land. And then there's Paul. There's Paul, right? In Acts chapter 9, verse 26, Paul joins himself to the church in Jerusalem. Now, this is after he's a Christian. I want to be very clear about that. You can't join the church. In order to become a member of God's church, you have to be added to it, Acts 2:47. But we do join ourselves to a local assembly, right? So Paul joined himself to the local assembly through verse 30 in Jerusalem. And In that passage, you can read about the difficulty he had doing that at first. They were very reserved against Paul, and Barnabas had to come in, step in, and defend Paul. And then in Acts chapter 13, Paul and Barnabas move, essentially, it seems like they move their membership to Antioch of Syria. And that becomes their base of operation. So they're working out of Antioch of Syria. And there's a lot of workers right there in Antioch of Syria. And from there, Paul launches out to, he goes to Cyprus and then up to Galatia in Turkey, modern day Turkey, up in that area on the border of Asia. So he's up through that region, and then, they go through Lystra, Iconium, Derbe, just so many places. Wonderful missionary trip, foreign lands. And so perhaps what we've done is we've taken that to mean that we can only really fulfill the charge of the Great Commission of going into all the world if we're supporting works like Paul that are traveling out and launching into foreign fields. I think that has something to do with it. I can't judge every single individual congregation. I don't know every congregation. And like I said earlier, I'm adamant about this. I'm not omniscient. I don't know everything, right? And none of us know everything. God does, but I don't. I don't know everything. I don't know the heart of every congregation. I'm just saying through experience. I think that's it. I think we've read the New Testament. We see Paul going out into foreign places where the gospel's never been before, and we say going into all the world. That's that. Going into all the world. And so in our congregational habits, in our budgets, it proves that we think that way. For whatever reason we think that way, that's the way we think in local churches. So in most congregations, if there is a section budgeted for evangelism in the budget, right? So you have works you support. Most of those are going to be foreign mission works. Very few, if any of them, are going to be directed toward local anything. Most of it's going to be some foreign mission work or collective work. So it's going to be supporting the work in, you name the place, in somewhere in Asia or India, right? You've got an India work that you support. And then beyond that, the works that you do support, they're collective radio programs and collective TV works, but it's all something outside the local area. In most congregations, the vast, if not all, of the budget for that kind of work goes beyond the local area. And then within the local church, in most congregations, there is little to no evangelistic work being done, which means that the primary focus of a congregation is foreign mission work. That's most congregations. That's not a slight. It's not to say, to badmouth congregations. I'm just saying I think we have fallen into the trap of doing that. Okay? Now, I have two thoughts on that. First thought, and this is where I want to be really clear again, because I don't want people running off and saying, oh, those people down at North Hamilton are opposing foreign mission work. Nope, I'm not. I want to be very clear. Number one, there is not one thing wrong with supporting a foreign mission work or sending foreign missionaries to foreign fields. There's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, in the New Testament, we have pattern for that. It's a good thing for the church to do. It's something we should do. I want to be very clear about that. In 1 Corinthians 16, verses 1 through 4, you have the two most quoted verses are the first two, right? About the contribution. But then, as a part of that, in 1 Corinthians 16, he makes mention of the fact that some of that contribution that they're going to be collecting is going to be used not in their area, in a different area. So, 1 Corinthians 16, let me read verse 3. Now, this is after talking about the collection on the first day of the week. He says, and when I come, this is Paul, whomever you approve by your letters, I will send to bear your gift, that'd be the contribution, to Jerusalem. So some of that would be used not just for Corinth, but some of that was going to be used for Jerusalem. And when Paul gets to Jerusalem, after he's been called on the carpet, he's under arrest In Acts chapter 24, verse 17, he explained, I brought alms and offerings to my nation. So he was saying that the effect of that was for the community, for benevolence and evangelism. Paul was using it for that purpose. So here's Corinth. You got people in Corinth supporting efforts in Jerusalem, right? That's foreign mission work. The same thing is true in Philippians chapter 4, verse 15, where Paul said no church did as much in fellowship with giving and receiving as much as you did, speaking to the church in Philippi. And that was of Paul. So Paul said they supported his missionary efforts. So everywhere that Paul went, he had financial support from them. So there is great evidence for, great pattern for supporting foreign mission work in the New Testament. It's important also to note that in the New Testament, here's my number 2 on this, that while Paul and others did travel and did do foreign mission work, the bulk of the New Testament exhortations, like when they're saying, do the work, put your hand to the plow, do the work, all of those are to congregations and to individuals evangelizing in their local areas. So while it may be true that Paul did, that he did evangelize in foreign areas, I read in 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 3, where he left Timothy in Ephesus to preach to and work in Ephesus. And then in Acts chapter 16 and chapter 17, you can read how Luke stayed behind to labor in Philippi. And then in Acts chapter 19 and in verse 1, you can read where Apollos was working in the local area of Corinth. So people were working in their local areas, okay? So I'm saying it takes both of those, and in just a moment, I think I can prove that there has to be a real emphasis, a real priority on a local area, otherwise the work won't get done. Or somebody will have to send foreign missionaries into your local area to do mission work if it doesn't get done, okay? So I want to be clear, we must do foreign mission work. And I mean sending missionaries, contributing to great, sound foreign mission works, that's really important. But the New Testament also emphasizes local efforts of local congregations. And I think that's somehow forgotten when we look and we're enamored by, and in a good way, we're enamored by Paul working in foreign mission fields. But we forget that he left people to work in local areas, and that's part of the work too. Okay, so there's the first thing. Here's question number 2. There are numerous collective works helping to spread the gospel. And in our class, we're going to talk about some that we support here locally at North Hamilton. While they are not inherently wrong, is there potential for abuse? That's the question, the real question here. The heart of the question is, could they be abused? And what could be the harm of these if we aren't careful? In other words, what could it prevent us from doing? Okay? So we do at North Hamilton, sorry, shook my desk. At North Hamilton, we support a lot of great works. And if you're part of our community, you may have seen some of those because we're trying to push those to you so you have access to those. For example, one of the ones we support is Apologetics Press. Now, that's a collective work. It is an evangelistic organization, but it's a different kind of evangelism because it's based on apologetics. It's trying to make sure people understand God exists and the reasons why he exists, and how we can prove that he does, or about the integrity of the scriptures. We can do that. We have lots and lots of things that we use from them. We support that work. We support numerous preaching schools where we're helping to train gospel preachers to preach the gospel. We support World Bible School, which is great at printing Bible study material, and they do a lot of things overseas, outside the United States. They're very dominant outside the United States. We support International Gospel Hour with our good friend Jeff Archie. He does a great job producing good, sound materials, try to produce Bible materials. In Search of the Lord's Way is a Bible program that comes on TVs on Sunday mornings. People have been watching that for years. We have a program that's called House to House, Heart to Heart. We mail that to thousands of people in our local communities. It's a wonderful thing. And I am personally involved in a lot of the video production for House to House. I'm privileged and honored to be a part of that. I love the men who work with House to House. There's some of my best friends in the world. They're good, sound people, great, godly men, and they have a great desire to get the gospel to as many people in the world as they can. And in America, it's millions and millions of copies that go out every month of House to House, Heart to Heart. They just do great work. Gospel Broadcasting Network. Some of our great friends, again, work in Gospel Broadcasting Network. We help support that. It produces television programming. They do a great job. And now it's streaming. You can get it via the internet, GBN. It's wonderful. But no matter the work, no matter the congregation, we should always be compelled to ask questions like, who is using these resources? How many people is it reaching? How many people are being converted from this? And we ought to evaluate the effectiveness of those programs per congregation. Now, all of those that we're supporting are great works. We would never willfully support an unsound work. We would never do that. Our elders would make sure of that. But there's a danger, I think. There's a danger of collective works. It doesn't mean it's wrong to support them. I'm just saying there's a danger in it if we're not careful. There's a danger in collective works, and the danger is in thinking that sending a check to a collective work removes the responsibility of local evangelism. I think that is a danger, and I think it's a trap we often fall into. I think congregations mostly struggle with this. We spend the majority of our work on foreign mission work, and we pat ourselves on the back. We say, hey, we're doing evangelism, but you may not be really doing evangelism. You may not be doing it locally. That's the challenge, right? There's nothing inherently wrong with supporting collective works, but there is a real danger of just being okay, fine, with someone else laboring, to step back and watch them do it and say, the work's getting done. See, they're doing it, and us do nothing. Of them reaching out, but us not reaching out. And we have to fight against that for several reasons. One, because collective works aren't really centered on a specific local area. And often, you might have a very large collective work, which is doing great work. It's just not really having a great, huge impact on your local area, right? So there might be a demographic, say, and I won't use names, I'll just say, let's say you have a TV program, and it can be any of them, a TV program, and they do a great job in production, and there might be a certain market, a certain part of the United States that's really receptive to that TV program. And it may show all over the United States, which means that one local area is getting great effect from that, but not a lot of other local areas are getting great effect from that. People have access to it. They could watch it if they would just turn their television on and get it. They could tune in and benefit, and there may be a few people in the area who do that, but not like it is in that one area. So it's not really meant to be specific to one local area and appeal to the culture of that one area like a local church would know about. So there's a danger there of missing opportunities through collective work. It's not a bad thing, just saying it can't do what the local church can do. And then members of the church, number 2, can become lazy and dependent on those collective works or the foreign mission work. And then number 3, often a congregation is so heavily invested in collective works and in foreign mission works that it has no money left and no resources left to actually dedicate to local evangelism. So there's danger in it. I say that as a warning. I don't say it's not a rebuke. I'm just saying as a warning that, and I guess it is a rebuke if we find ourselves trapped in that situation, but we just have to be forewarned that there's danger in that. Now here's number 3. I think all 3 questions build on each other. So question number 3, what does the world mean in a congregational context? And as a congregation, what should be our primary area of concern and why? So obviously, the world means our area too. And every creature in Mark 16, to preach the gospel to every creature under heaven, that means people here right in our local area. And if wherever you're watching, it means your local area as well. It means our neighbors, our community, our friends, our schoolmates, our work associates. It's the people right here. That's the world to us. Is it also Asia and Greece and Italy? Sure it is. Is it India and Russia and Ukraine? Of course it is. It's those people too. And China or wherever else you name. Antarctica and South Pole and North Pole, wherever. It's everywhere in the world. But it's also right here. And we, as a congregation, are responsible for this area. In Matthew 5, verses 13 through 16, if God is setting us up to be the light of the world and the salt of the earth, then the people who primarily feel that influence are the people we live with. It's not people in China who are receiving salt and light from North Hamilton. Now, indirectly, we can do that through a collective work, but they're not receiving the benefit of our living righteously and our faithfulness to the Word of God, which is what that passage is about. It's the people locally that are receiving that benefit. This is the way that we reach the world and all the souls in the world, is that every local church is canvassing and doing the work in its local area. So if we put, there's no limit on it. There's no limit here. But if we said, we are responsible for this local area, and then the next neighboring local congregation is responsible for its local area, and all of a sudden those two local areas are overlapping a bit, it means that nobody's getting missed. Everybody is on board in every local congregation, and nobody's being missed. But that's our emphasis. We are supposed to be evangelizing our area. And if not, then somebody needs to send a foreign missionary in and work this foreign mission soil, because that's what we've become, is a mission work. If we're not willing to work our local area. Going into all world does not exclude our local area. If anything, it means we have and should be a priority on this area. And so it should be that while we could be involved in some foreign mission works, we're not skimping on, and we're certainly not lowering the percentage of our resources and funds for the local area. This should be our emphasis. This is the work that we're responsible for. As the local church, we're the salt and the light to this area. And so both are necessary. Do foreign mission work, but you better work at home. And that's for me, and that's for all of us. So what does it mean to go into all the world? It means right here too. And I think most congregations have really struggled with that over the years. I think we have a tendency to outsource everything, and we don't do what's necessary, which is the work right here. That's the point. That's what this lesson is about. All right, we'll add to that in the next lesson. Thank you so much. I hope you're getting a lot from this. I hope it's challenging. We don't do a great job at this, and we should be. This is our work. It's our mission to seek and save the lost. We share it with the Lord. His mission is ours now, so we should be doing that. Thank you so much again for tuning in. If you haven't seen the previous 4 lessons, go back and view them and then view this lesson. I hope you're enjoying the series. Again, I hope it's challenging. It's certainly challenging to me. We're trying to better ourselves, and that's what this is all about. If I can answer any questions, please let me know. I'll be glad to do it. Until the next lesson, please know I love you and God loves you even more than I do. See you, friends. Bye-bye.